Now, how does throwing in a wild card? How does Pakistan? What was really behind Benazir Bhutto? How does Musharraf resigning? How does all that feed in? I mean, is that the U.S. Anglo-American system weakening more, or is that a reshuffling?
I think that was in the Bhutto business, the assassination of Bhutto. I think the evidence points to the fact that Musharraf's own security services assassinated her. She was killed in a town where the Pakistani military virtually runs the town.
That's what my sources are saying. And was it the West was sending her in, and Musharraf said no, thank you?
Yeah, basically that. He saw her as a rival, even though Cheney was running, by all accounts, the U.S.-Pakistan policy. No one from the State Department was allowed any input into what they were playing with. And Cheney and his circle of hawks there in the office of the vice president, some say the president, but anyway, that's really beside the point. They needed to get a pleasant face on the events in Pakistan.
So is Musharraf leaving? What's behind that?
Well, now what's behind it is a real power vacuum inside Pakistan,
with nuclear weapons floating around.
Well, the reports I have are that the quid pro quo for Pakistan getting U.S. aid in the war on terror negotiations back in 2001.
Is that U.S. forces sit on top of them?
Yes. So the U.S. has the lock key on the Pakistan.
So is Pakistan really just a sub-state or a proxy state if the U.S. or England ever wants to nuke India?
Well, I think the Pentagon strategy in the last 4 years has been to make India the American cat's paw in Asia against China. And the Indian elites are split down the middle. They like U.S. investment in Chinese software companies and so forth.
But Pakistan is the Trump, though. I mean, that's a wild card, or you disagree?
Pakistan is it's a potential wild card. It's a very, very complex part of Asia. China has a big influence.
Here's the question. Well, exactly. Their buddies. Why did the West help give nukes to AQ Khan Laboratories is the question.
I'm sorry, you have to repeat the question because
Why did the West, in your educated opinion, help arm Pakistan with nukes? Well, what was the point of that?
I think to justify the strategy of tension has been a very effective way for the U.S. to extend its
I agree with you. Stay there. So basically, it's like in the Western where he drops the gun in front of the guy. We've got author, researcher, geopolitical expert William Engdahl on with us. Final segment. I'm going to twist his arm into 2 hours with us next week because there's so many questions I want to ask. This guy's got really amazing research. Get ready for his website here at the end and how you get some of his books. If any of you still read, I know I don't hardly have time, but this is stuff you've got to read to understand the true nature of the world and what's happening in it. You think creating Al-Qaeda is bad. What about giving nukes or help give nukes to Pakistan just so you can have a strategy of tension and say, oh, my God, there's nukes? That's what we're dealing with here. And in the 4 minutes we've got left, sir, briefly, your new book coming out, I want to give a prelude to that, the full spectrum dominance, and then also you get into the GMO and how dangerous it is and talk about that being conspiratorial. Break that down in the 4 minutes we've got left.
Okay. Well, the full spectrum dominance, we've touched on many of the themes very briefly in the last hour, Alex, but that's basically the background to why the Cold War never ended and why back in the late 1940s, the dominant factions in the American establishment at that point, which was most keynoted by one family, the Rockefeller family, Nelson, David, Lawrence, and John D. Rockefeller III, they developed this idea of the national security state. Anything could be justified, a violation of individual rights, any illegalities by the CIA and so forth, by the term national security. Nobody wants to be insecure, so they kind of without question accepted what was being done. But that has now become permanent and become globalized since the end of the Cold War, and that's what the Full Spectrum Dominance book takes up, and how that has been manipulated in terms of the American population and all sorts of other things, the control of the media. Now, the question of GMO. I got into this. I've been following the whole agribusiness, the grain cartel, and so forth since the early 1980s, and the Uruguay round trade talks of the GATT, the GATT, and I realized that there was a cartel. There's certain core interests that are inviolable in terms of the U.S. national security state. One of them is the military-industrial complex. Number two is the big oil, which includes Halliburton, most definitely. And number three is the grain cartel, or the control of world food trade. And Cargill, Bunge, Archer Daniel Midland. And what I got into in this GMO book was I realized that essentially four corporations, Monsanto, DuPont, Dow, and Syngenta, which is really a British company, but it's based in Basel, Switzerland, they stood to control patents on life, but patents on the most vital food in the human food chain.
But they had to infect the entire biosphere to then create a global crisis that only global Anglo-American power could deal with. I haven't read your book, but I know their battle plan. Is that what your book gets into?
It gets into the plan of eugenics. The using GMO is the Frankenstein dream of the Rockefeller eugenics faction, or Rockefeller.
Well, I've never read your book, but the reason I'm finishing your statements is so listeners understand this is the truth, and I've got to get your book. I've got to carry it at Infowars.com. People have got to get it. They understand this is part of a larger strategic plan. We have their own documents. I would guess you reverse engineered and have the same stuff I have. I'm just so busy. I'm making a second Endgame, or similar term. I'd like to interview you for it, and I'm doing it next year. I may even suspend the JFK thing. This is just too important. But on this subject, give us your websites. Tell us how they get that book.
Okay. www.engdahl, ENGDAHL, oilgeopolitics, one word, .net. www.engdahl.oilgeopolitics.net is my website. All the books are there in different languages so far that are available. But the Seeds of Destruction book is available. My publisher is Michel Chosadowski's Global Research, www.globalresearch, one word, .ca.
Okay, that's it. That's it, sir. We got to let you